The following podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Like what you hear? Want more of it ad-free, uncensored, and earlier? Sign up today at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and start getting more for as little as $2 a month. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for your main event, where news and opinions on the sport of kings collide. WrestleMedia is proud to present The Wrasslun Show.
Welcome to The Wrasslun Show, part of WrestleMedia, where everything is wrestling, and wrestling is everything. I am your host, @Matthew Sukram, and I'm flying solo today. Our Lord and Savior, Adam Conton, is off battling the forces of evil and spreading his love around the world, and I'm just so busy that I didn't even have time to ask anyone if they want to co-host the show with me this week. But don't worry, I've done this before. I mean, I do this for a living, actually. I talk to myself into a microphone, and I hope that people actually listen. And this is going to be no different. I hope to keep you listening, even if Adam is not here. We'll actually hear from him later in the show. He's got another great interview lined up, but I've got what I think is a fun show lined up for you today, too. And we hope you have enjoyed all of those interviews that Adam has been putting together over the last little while. We expect to have a lot more for you in the next coming weeks, considering where we will be in just a couple of weeks. But before we get any further, I've got to tell you about WrestleMedia. If this is your first time listening, thank you. We appreciate it. But you're probably only getting a taste of what we have to offer. And if you want all kinds of cool perks, merchandise, earlier shows that are uncut and in some cases uncensored, then why not consider becoming one of our Patreon supporters? We have multiple tiers of ways you can help support us for as little as $2 a month, all the way up to our main event tier, which is $20 a month. You can also advertise with us now, so if you have something to push or plug, you can make all our other listeners hear that as well. All of that information is over at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Actually, it's just patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Our website is WrestleMedia.ca. And that is your one-stop shop for everything we do, from podcasts to blogs to videos to our announcer bios that are up there as well. We've got it all on there. And the first time you visit, you will be prompted to sign up for our newsletter. That's the best way to stay up to date on what is happening here at WrestleMedia. So sign up. That part is free. And really, just enjoy what we have to give you. But if you want more, throw in some ducats in the bucket, as Adam likes to call it, and help us make this a reality, a full-time thing that we can do for you, because that's what we love to do here at WrestleMedia. We love to talk wrestling, and we want to do it more. We want to give you more stuff, more cool videos, more content, more merchandise, more exclusive interviews. I mean, it's not even just this show that's getting some interviews. We had Tommy Dreamer on The Lasting Mark a couple of weeks ago. We've had Madison Rayne on Women Crush Wrestling. We've had Vicky Guerrero on Women Crush Wrestling. So, you know, we're really trying to make this a real thing, and you can help support us and help us get there. One of the other things that we have going on that you will see on our website is, if you haven't heard yet, we will be at Chinlock Wrestling's Legend Convention and Charity Show in just 2 weeks' time on Saturday, June 15th at the Leon Center in Kingston, Ontario. There will be a ton of wrestling legends on hand, including Billy Gunn, Tommy Dreamer, Mark Henry, both of the Brainbusters, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, Hornswoggle, and even Bret the Hitman Hart. And the in-ring action is going to be off the hook too. If you haven't had a chance to look at the card, you're going to be amazed by what's on there. The House of Hardcore Championship is on the line. Sami Callihan takes on Willie Mack, with Jimmy Korderas officiating the match. Yes, the same Jimmy Korderas of WWE officiating, refereeing fame. He'll be officiating that match for the House of Hardcore Championship. We're also going to have a chance to see the Chinlock Heavyweight Championship defended in a fatal 4-way match. That's between Jesse Mack, who, as we said, you have heard interviewed here on WrestleMedia on our show Women Crush Women Crush Wrestling with Adam and Just Jen. Jesse Mack is defending the Chinlock Heavyweight Championship against Madison Rayne, who you've heard on Women Crush Wrestling. Beautiful Bia and Addie Starr are added into that mix to make it a fatal 4-way match. That should be one heck of a match for that title. Tommy Dreamer and Billy Gunn not only are at the Legends Convention, but they're going to get in the ring and take on Tyson Dukes and Tarek in a tag match. There will be so much to see, and we can't wait to be a part of it all on June 15th at the Leon Center in Kingston, Ontario. Okay, I think that's enough shilling out of the way. Let's talk about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia in the Middle East is officially known as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. As of October 2018, it has one of the world's youngest populations. 50% of its 33.4 million people are under 25 years old. And a lot of those people are wrestling fans because they have a lot of expendable money, and they're going to be home to Super Showdown on Friday. It's a big card. A lot of big names are on that card. And they are throwing all kinds of dollar bills at Vince McMahon, and he's basically giving them almost anything they ask for, including, for the first time ever, Goldberg versus The Undertaker. Yes, it's 2019, and we're finally getting a match we all wanted from 2001. My thoughts are very, very low-key on this. At first, I was upset when I first saw the promotion for this match because, as I said, this is a match that I had always wanted to see, and the fact that they are doing it very, very late in these guys' careers on a show that's clearly being done just for the money by not just the WWE, but by basically everyone involved, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And there was no build to it at all. Then, The Undertaker cuts a pretty good promo on Raw, and I'm thinking, okay, thank you. That's all I wanted. Just a little bit of effort on the creative side to pump me up for this icon versus icon match. Now, I'm probably still not going to watch the match live, but it at least has me entertaining the possibility of tuning in. Because, take me back to when I was, 12, 13. This is the match, one of the matches everybody was talking about. This is one of the matches that people say was a missed opportunity in the invasion angle. So yeah, you've got my interest just on who they are, and you've got my interest based on the promo that The Undertaker had on Monday. He still got it after all that time. And Goldberg is apparently expected to respond to The Undertaker's words on SmackDown. So again, at least creative is putting in some good effort here late in the stage to try and sell this match that really at the end of the day doesn't need a whole lot of selling. You just throw the two names up there and say, who wants to see it? But, I mean, you gotta have some effort in there, and I applaud WWE Creative for at least doing a little bit. But here's the thing, what really got me thinking is of dream matches. And yes, we all like to play fantasy booker once in a while, and I got to thinking, why didn't we get this match, let's say 15 years ago? In 2003, so 16 years ago if I'm doing my math right, but in 2003, both Undertaker and Goldberg were in the company. This match could have taken place at some point in time. Heck, Goldberg could have gone out as one of Undertaker's victims at WrestleMania. His contract was coming up anyway. Why not have Goldberg in Kane's spot at WrestleMania 20? Have Goldberg turn heel. Maybe they do the same kind of story. Maybe you have Goldberg come out and bury The Undertaker at Survivor Series. And Goldberg says, he came to the WWE to destroy all of its legends. And that's when we get American Badass Undertaker coming back as Deadman Undertaker. Goldberg says that kind of a line, and then boom, Deadman Undertaker vignettes start to appear, and away we go with Undertaker's Deadman comeback being against a WCW legend. And here's the thing, Goldberg wasn't coming back after WrestleMania 20 anyway, so him being another victim on Undertaker's streak would have been a really cool moment in WWE history. And if Goldberg ever did come back, once his contract was up after WrestleMania 20, he's got a built-in revenge feud with a top guy ready to go. So that's how I would have done it back 16 years ago. I know everyone wanted Brock versus Goldberg, but when you have two guys that are leaving the company, everyone knows what happened with that match, and it wasn't good. But that's something I wanted to focus on today. Dream match scenarios that could have taken place. Now, I did some research. I looked through a bunch of these kinds of articles, and some of them had matches like Rob Van Dam versus Superfly Jimmy Snuka, or Andre the Giant versus The Big Show. Obviously, those could have never happened, so I limited my searches to the scenarios of the ones where both guys were more or less in their prime and on the WWE roster at the same time, in scenarios that could have built towards a match at one of the big shows, if not WrestleMania. But most of these scenarios I worked out where they could have had matches at WrestleMania. So those were the only parameters as I'm playing Fantasy Booker. If a guy was injured or healthy but not wrestling within the WWE promotion, I didn't allow myself to stretch those limits by saying, well, they could have just brought this guy in. These are simply dream matches where both guys could have worked together if we just slightly adjust some matches on different cards here and there. So let's get started. One of the big ones that popped up on a lot of these lists involve one of the guys at Super Showdown, and it's Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Goldberg. Could it have happened? Okay, technically no. I know I'm cheating just slightly out of the gate here, but this is my only real cheat within those parameters, and I'll explain that as I go. So, they were never both quote-unquote healthy and in the company at the same time, although Goldberg and Austin could have had a match at WrestleMania 19. That was Austin's last match in which he lost to The Rock, and Goldberg made his debut the very next night on Raw. So we could have had basically the same kind of build that we got with Rock versus Austin, only it would be Austin saying, I've done it all. I've beaten the best, and there's nothing left for me to do here. I think it's really time to move on. But then Goldberg gives him one reason to stay, and we get one epic encounter at Mania 19. It's Goldberg's first match in the WWE, and it's Austin's last. Again, I know I stretched the limits a little bit there after putting all those parameters in, but I promise that all the the rest of the scenarios do fall in that parameter, and I said, you know what, it's a difference of 24 hours there, so I allowed myself to let that one go. So the next one is Shawn Michaels versus The Rock. The showstopper versus the great one. Now, these guys easily could have had a match at any point between 1996 until 1998, but it would have been a young, up-and-coming Rocky Maivia versus the Heartbreak Kid, and it wouldn't have had that legendary status appeal that it would have had when Shawn Michaels returned in 2002 after he fully recovered from what looked like a career-ending back injury at the time. So there are 3 spots I can think of that would have been a marquee moment for The Rock versus Shawn Michaels. And the first one would be at Mania 19. Michaels beat Chris Jericho on that night, and as we just mentioned, The Rock defeated Austin. But both guys were there. Both guys were in great shape. One of them was a clear heel, and the other a babyface. It would have made for a great match at that point in their careers. All you're doing is slightly adjusting that card, and you could have had, for the first time ever, one-on-one in a singles match, The Rock versus Shawn Michaels. The other moment would have been SummerSlam 2002. That's where The Rock dropped the Universal title to Brock Lesnar, and Shawn Michaels fought Triple H in what was supposed to be, according to all the rumor and innuendo, that was supposed to be a one-off, but it ended up being the starting point in what was one of the best feuds over the next year between Triple H and Shawn Michaels. So I don't really want to take any of that away. Clearly, HBK and Triple H, they continued to feud, and it was memorable. It was on and off again, not only really over the next year, but they had matches throughout the next 2 to 3 years before reforming DX. Meanwhile, after Mania 19, The Rock had 2 other big matches, really. It was against Goldberg at Backlash 03, and then at Mania 20 in a tag match, where was The Rock and Sock Connection against Evolution, while HBK was in the triple threat main event for the title against Triple H and Chris Benoit. So, like at Mania 19, you could have done Rock versus HBK at Mania 20, and that would have been pretty fitting for a big marquee show like that, as just a way to finally have 2 of the biggest babyface stars in the history of the company going at it at that point. I think Rock versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 20 one-on-one would have been huge, huge money. Let's stick with HBK for a second and focus on the other title match at Mania 20. That one featured Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle. But what if we substitute Kurt Angle for Shawn Michaels straight up? I know a lot of people say a match between Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero would have been one for the ages. And while both title matches at Mania 20 are 2 of some of the best ever title matches in my opinion, I think in an alternate universe, you could have had the general managers at the time make a trade and say HBK is going to SmackDown and Angle is going to Raw following the Royal Rumble, and you play the story out the exact same way. HBK wins the Battle Royal to become #1 contender, and Kurt Angle signs his name on Chris Benoit's contract, and boom, we have 2 new matches without doing a whole lot of extra booking there, and those 2 matches that would have probably delivered just as well as what we actually got. Of course, you could have had Eddie and Shawn go at it at any point between the beginning of 2003 and into 2005, but if we're talking when both guys were huge moneymakers, then you could have also had Eddie face Shawn at Mania 21. That was the year where HBK took on Kurt Angle, in fact, in probably one of the best technical wrestling matches they've ever done. And you had Eddie Guerrero taking on Rey Mysterio in the opener of that show. So there was opportunity there for Shawn and Eddie before Eddie sadly passed away later in 2005. But I think, we had seen Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle already at that point. And I think that you could have substituted Kurt Angle in that triple threat match and had it be Triple H, Kurt Angle, and Chris Benoit, and you probably would have gotten a very similar result. I'm not saying they missed an opportunity there because, again, both matches are amazing, but the fact that they never had Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero go one-on-one is a bit disheartening, unfortunately. Let's go back to Austin for a minute. There are two really big names that people on these lists always bring up in terms of wishing they could have seen Austin lace up against them, and that is Hulk Hogan and Brock Lesnar. Now, I'm lumping them together because the time frames here are very short and very similar for these two opponents. The first one is obvious. Have Austin face Hogan at Mania X8 instead of giving that match to The Rock. After that, in real life, Austin feuded with Ric Flair through most of the spring of 2002 before walking out on the WWE due to creative differences that apparently centered around the build-up of Brock Lesnar, who debuted the night after Mania X8. So following that, the only pay-per-views Austin appear at are Backlash and Judgment Day in the spring of 2002 within that feud with Ric Flair, and neither of those really scream a marquee Hogan versus Austin first time ever one-on-one match. Although Super Showdown doesn't really scream Goldberg versus Taker first time ever one-on-one, but hey, we're playing Fantasy Booker, right? So the next big event Austin is in after X8 is Mania 19. So in a perfect world, I think you basically have Austin face Hogan at X8, and then in his final match, he drops the title to Brock Lesnar at 19. I know we said have Austin face Goldberg at 19 as well, but hey, if you know, we're limited in time and we're keeping ourselves within the parameters, you've got to have one or the other. That was going to be it. If Austin and Lesnar were ever going to have a big marquee matchup, if it was ever going to happen in the WWE, that would have been it at WrestleMania 19. Again, those are within the parameters that we're working with. Let's go back to one of the guys who got us on this track. Of all the opponents Undertaker has had at WrestleMania, it is mind-boggling that he and Sting never hooked up, and not just in a fantasy setting, but there was a clear-cut opportunity for this match to happen at WrestleMania 31. It was Sting's first official match in the WWE, and Undertaker took on Bray Wyatt. Now, I liked both those matches. I liked the Taker versus Wyatt match. I liked the Triple H versus Sting match, but this should have been Taker versus Sting right from the moment Sting debuted at Survivor Series a few months prior. The story just writes itself. I mean, just do what Triple H and Undertaker did before their second Mania encounter by not saying anything. Just two guys in the ring staring each other down, point to the WrestleMania sign, they nod, and leave. And then you can build from there if you want, but yeah, I really think not having Undertaker and Sting at WrestleMania 31, those were just some of the ones that I came across that were kind of cross-referenced through a lot of lists. So let me know what you think. Would you have rather have seen any of those matches compared to the ones that we actually got at those events? Are there dream matches that you can think of that could have taken place but didn't? Again, trying to remember the parameters. I mean, we could do the fantasy booking thing all day, but I tried to play within a couple of boundaries there. But I'd love your feedback on other matches that you think could have taken place that just simply didn't for whatever reason. We're going to do a quick rundown of some other news on what's going on in the Wrasslun world over the past few days. A big rumor that's being reported is that Matt Riddle could be a factor in whatever Brock Lesnar does at Super Showdown in Saudi Arabia on Friday. I thought it was so stupid on Monday that Brock destroyed Seth Rollins. You know, he had him down and out, completely dead to rights, Paul Heyman is yelling at Brock to cash in his briefcase, and he just smiles and says, "No, Friday, because we're selling a pay-per-view, Paul. I'm going to do it on Friday." Like, really? I didn't think you could have a Money in the Bank contract storyline that was worse than the way Baron Corbin was booked when he had the briefcase, but clearly WWE is hitting it out of the park when it comes to confusing booking that just makes all their characters look stupid. Anyway, hopefully when Brock goes to cash in, Matt Riddle gets involved and we get Brock doing something different, I guess. I mean, it's hard for me to care about this character at this point. He's gotten stale. He's gotten boring. If Lesnar didn't have Paul Heyman, I don't think he would have gotten to this point in his career in his second go-around. I really don't think that Brock has a whole lot of gusto behind him without Paul Heyman. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. Some of the best heels in the business were so memorable because of their managers. It's just funny how WWE just goes out of their way to get certain guys attached with the audience, and they try different things with them, and then they don't do the same with others. I don't know. It's just funny to me the way the hierarchy breaks down that way. I'm clearly, one of the few who feel this way, though. WWE ratings have been up the last 2 weeks, but I wonder if it's just a matter of Brock being on the show himself, or is it the intrigue of the Money in the Bank cash-in? There's also reports that because The Undertaker was announced that he would be appearing on Raw, that had a little bit of a bump in the ratings. So we'll see. This is also usually the period when ratings start to generally come back historically anyway. There's usually that period after WrestleMania where it's really hot and then it just dies in, or dies down. So I don't know. I know a lot of people were panicking in WWE, saying they had all-time low numbers, but if that's the way the markets go, if that's the way the trends have gone for the last 20, 30 years now, I don't think there's anything to get too worked up over. And I think with the available options of entertainment for nightly viewing, whether it's on TV or on streaming services or whatever, there's so much out there that people aren't flipping through the same 40 channels and settling on wrestling anymore. So I think you're going to take a hit regardless of what kind of stories you're putting out there or who's got the title. I think ratings were going to be in a decline anyway. I don't think they were forecasted to be this much of a decline, but it is also interesting that as Brock returns to TV, the numbers do slightly go up. But again, this is usually when the ratings start to go up anyway. So we'll see. We'll see how that all falls out. I want to kind of talk about the rest of the card at Super Showdown, so since that's going to be the big news towards the end of the week. Just some quick takes on the matches. We'll start with Triple H and Randy Orton. Why? I guess Triple H needs something to do at these shows, and Randy Orton doesn't have a whole lot going on. This will likely just be a one and done between these two. I'm kind of over the whole we love each other, we hate each other, evolution, we're brothers, now we're not brothers kind of thing. It's been overdone. I'm tired of that already. But should probably be a good filler match, I guess, as long as it doesn't go too long, but how likely is that to happen? Seth Rollins versus Baron Corbin for the Universal Championship. I like Baron Corbin in this spot. WWE has pushed him pretty hard for the last 2.5, 3 years now. I don't think the title should come off of Seth Rollins, but I do think he and Corbin can have a good match because I think Corbin will be a guy that can remain near the top of the card as he continues to grow into a main event heel. I don't think he's long-term championship material if they decide to put the title on him. I think his gimmick is just, it is what it is. He's just kind of there. He's just kind of a jerk. There's not a whole lot of appeal there. I don't think it's going to generate good heat for a long time, but I do like him in this spot right now. Kofi Kingston and Dolph Ziggler are fighting for the WWE Championship. Seriously, if they take the title off of Kofi and give it to Dolph, that is going to be one of the funniest troll moves Creative has made in a long, long time. Ziggler has always been built as the guy that's just not good enough, but everyone gets behind him. And now you have this amazingly over babyface champion, a man of the people in Kofi Kingston, who did everything to get himself over, and then they go and put the title on Dolph Ziggler. I honestly think Dolph is just in this spot to give Kofi one hell of a title defense match. But oh man, if they give Ziggler the championship and have him go over, it is going to be such a troll move, such a slap in the face. And that's why I can see them doing it, because they love doing that to their audience. Balor versus Andrade for the Intercontinental Championship. This match should be unreal from an athletic in-ring standpoint. I think these guys might steal the show. As far as, some of the undercard matches go, I don't really care who wins, to be quite honest. This could really go either way. I like the story. I like both of these guys. I'm just looking forward to this match, and that's a good thing when the Intercontinental Championship is involved. Roman Reigns versus Shane McMahon, that is an absolute joke and should be a 30-second squash match on Sunday Night Heat. Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley, I haven't really been impressed with this story. It's just there. I think this is actually a big match for both these guys, though. I think either could be primed to getting back into the top of the card. It's going to be a matter of what else happens with the rest of the fallout of this show. And this is another one that could go either way. I think WWE is still really high on both of these guys, but they don't know how to get them there. So that's why I think this could be a big match for both of them. And Lucha Party versus Lars Sullivan in a 3-on-1 match. I mean, what better way to get the Cruiserweight division over than by having one guy beat the hell out of 3 of them? Yeah. Great. Before we wrap things up, I'm going to send things over to Adam Contant for a special interview.
Hey, this is a commercial for patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, where you can get early access to episodes of your favorite WrestleMedia shows, get full uncut and uncensored versions of your favorite shows, and more. Don't want to hear this commercial on your podcast anymore? Sign up at our main event tier and get these episodes ad-free. Want to hear your own commercial here instead of ours? We've got tiers for that too. Visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and join the WrestleMedia revolution today.
So, yeah, when my dad said to you, he was a wrestler, and then as soon as I said Hollywood Hunks, you're, I know you, and I'm like, well, okay, thanks, man. I have to say, what I would consider what was my official last match, I did the reunion show and whatnot, right? And which was a blast, but I was working this team called the Piss Beaters. We're allowed to swear on this, right?
Well, we can. I'm fine with that. It's an official tag team name.
Right.
Jake O'Reilly, who's a former guest of the show.
Yep.
Anthony Darko. So our listeners are probably familiar.
They easily one of my favorite tag teams ever to work with.
Love those guys.
And I was done. I would say I was kind of getting into a dark place. My wife had a heart attack, and my son wasn't doing well, and pressure just building up. Right? I have 4 kids, and I have to maintain the house looking after 4 kids. And
so the hunk gimmick isn't a gimmick. It's real, at least for your wife.
Yeah, it's real. It's as real as it can get, man. Yeah, man. And so I was burning out, and I went from, okay, sweet, we're booked for the next 9 weekends, to, damn, I'm booked for the next 9 weekends. You know what I mean? And honestly, it became a love-hate thing. When I was there, it was okay, let's do this, man. But I could see my in-ring work was starting to
suffer a little bit.
I wasn't paying as close attention as I would under normal circumstances, right?
Right.
And But I had said to Mark Custom, I was like, hey, you know what, man, I think I'm done, man. I'm done. I'm just not feeling it right now. And honestly, I didn't even elaborate to him why I was done. I think, and I should have. That was my bad. But he was like, okay, what do you want me to say? I said, well, whatever, man. I said, I'm just burned out. I'm done. And but with the piss beaters, I remember Mark, he calls me up and he's like, look, man, I'm doing Crossfire, which is a promotion in Niagara Falls. We were the tag champs, and he says, they're just going to beat the hell out of me and take the belts off me. And, I told a few people what was going on, and so they understood where I was at. And I said, he goes, come on, can you just do the show? Instead of them just thumping me, just do the show with it. And I said, all right, screw it. I will. I said, who are you working? Piss beaters. I'm there. Done. No problem. I'm
Easy
there.
get, right?
Yeah. And, Drew and Bill, or O'Reilly, or Darko, whatever you want to call them.
Breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, definitely.
Pulling back the curtain here.
Exactly, man. But you know what? They are pros through and through, man. They reminded me a lot of how Mark and I were. And we, when you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, and that's what I want to do, and this and that. Some people you work with, and it's no disrespect to anyone. I have nothing but the highest level of respect for anyone who steps into that squared circle, right? But sometimes when you're backstage, you got egos, right?
Of course.
And people are over-talking each other. And one of the best compliments I ever got was Darko says, he goes, you know what I love about you guys, man? You listen to what we're saying. Like, you're hearing, like, you're letting us have our input. And I said, well, but why wouldn't I? We're trying to put a story together and try to convey that in front of however many people are out there. If I'm just going to overtalk you, then how are we going to ever go out there and have something solid? Do
you find that that's something was lacking towards the end of your run in your career? Did you find that was less of a thing in locker rooms?
And again, I don't mean any disrespect, but yeah, a little bit. Yeah, especially with the younger crew. And then, see, when I broke in, I had all the old school veterans still around. Like Sheik was there, Honky Tonk Man, Greg Valentine, who's here today.
That's right, yeah.
Like Snuka. The first name I ever worked with was Tito Santana.
Wow.
And
what was that like?
I'd never been so scared in my life.
And this was back when he was still working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was in great shape still, I would say he was maybe about 5 years older than I am now, but he was still great shape.
And you're in pretty good shape too still. So, I'm saying, it's a lifestyle, right? You don't get out of that sort of thing just because you stop working.
Exactly. No, fitness is my true passion. I'm over and above everything else.
Is that what you're doing now?
Yeah, just train all the time, lifting weights.
Awesome.
A good diet, and I like it. It's, when you have the exit, you got to find something else. If
Absolutely.
Your whole world was wrestling and you're not doing it anymore, what are you going to do?
Absolutely.
Right? So when I worked with those people, like Tito Santana and stuff, they listened to everything we had to say. And he was like, what do you want to do, kid? And I said, well, I like doing this, and, I kind of have some stuff like this. And then he says to me, which is kind of funny now, thinking about it, but at the time I was scared. He goes,
sure.
I have 2 herniated discs in my back. And I'm like, oh, my God. Now I'm gonna work one of my childhood heroes, and he's telling me his spine's all messed up. And
no pressure, though, right?
No pressure
no
at
pressure.
all. So it was funny because and this is someone who's green, okay?
Sure.
I was green at that time for sure. And I call Slam out on the floor. But I'm lost. I'm so amped up. And I go, will you take a slam? And he's like, absolutely, man. So I pick him up. But when I pick him up, it was like full force up. And then I gently put him down. You okay, man?
I got you, Tito. I got you.
Yeah, man. And then, but I'll even go a step further than that. When we get in the ring, and you know what's funny? Last year he was at the Niagara Comic-Con.
Right.
and I ran into him. Was it last year or the year before? Anyways, he was there. And he didn't remember who I was. I mean, we're talking 20 years later, right?
And he's wrestled, thousands
of people. So, and I told him this story again, and he burst out laughing, right? He said, when we came up with a spot, the opening spot, and it was actually my spot. So what do you think about something like this? And he goes, okay. I don't remember how it was supposed to finish, but I was supposed to duck a line.
Right.
Okay? And he gets me running the rope. I'm going to duck the line. In my head, I know I'm ducking the line, and he's even swinging high. But I bumped. and he grabs me, and he goes, you forgot the spot, didn't you? I go, I did. I said, let's go again. He goes, nope. And then he just carried on. But what was cool about him, he was totally understanding. Like, after that flub, the match was great.
Sure, because you got it out of the way, right?
Exactly, and then the nerves are gone, and
Sure.
It's like, now I know how he feels about it, and we're just having fun now.
Right.
But he, at the end of the match, we're in the back, comes up, gives me a big hug, man. He says, you did great, brother. And I'm like, sorry about that flub. He goes, you know what, man? We all screw up. All of us did. So the worst thing to do is to go and do it again, because there's only two people who know you screwed up.
That's right.
And that's it. And you know what? I'm going to talk about the late, great Autobahn, if you don't mind.
Please, I would love for you to do that.
If there was ever a firecracker, that he was the one, right? Especially in that business, man. That guy could make anyone laugh. I mean, you couldn't hate him. Even when you hated him, you couldn't hate him, right? But on that match, that day, because they wanted all original RWA guys, exactly how we were when we all broke in. And so he was our manager. And we're sitting in the back, just shooting the boys. Otto had gone off, whatever, and we're just kind of just hanging out. And one of the all-nighters, I can't remember which one it was, Joey comes running back. He goes, guys, you're on. What? Yeah, Otto's out there. Oh, we run over. They called us out, introduced us. Music was playing. We're not anywhere to be found. He's in the ring. But like a pro, doesn't skip a beat, grabs the mic. Now, let me introduce them how you're supposed to introduce them.
Sure.
And then he goes into this thing. We come out, and we do what we do. I walk right up to Otto, and I go, well, we screwed that one up, didn't we? And he's like, yes, you did, Stunner. And that was actually the last time I'd seen him before he passed. And awesome.
Tell us about
human.
when you found out about Otto's passing.
So,
did you guys keep in touch a lot, or was it just because? Listen, nobody will think less of you because it's just the way the wrestling business is, right? You get out of it, you lose touch with some people.
Yeah, it was like kind of a Facebook thing by that point. Like, we were all tight when we were all in the business.
But you guys still kept in touch, is what I'm saying.
We kept in touch. It would be the odd text. Hey, man, how you doing?
Sure.
I mean, he understood. I had 4 kids. Yeah. He just got remarried.
As we say on the network, life happens.
Life happens, exactly. So, Chris called me up. First, he sends me a text, and confirming that that's still my phone number.
Right.
Because we hadn't talked for a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, man, how's it going? Like, what's up? How are you doing? And he says, I'm not good. And I said, well, what's up? He goes, Petey passed. And I said, I was staring at the phone for a moment like, I'm not reading that right. And I call him up, and I said, you're kidding me. And he says, I wish I was, man. And I said, oh, my God, man. And then I got quiet, and I just started kind of reminiscing and just like, he's one of the bravest people I have ever met, man, honestly. And I remember him, we're in our 20s, he's in my apartment, and we're just hanging out. And he was making good money. He was a computer tech. He was making good money. And he hated the job there, hated it. And he says to me, you know what, screw it, man. I'm leaving that place. I don't give a And I'm like, really, man? But you're making good money. He says, I don't give a I'm leaving. Okay, well, whatever. He did, quit. Went to Old Navy. bounced around, didn't care, man. How many people can honestly say, I'm giving up all this money to find whatever it is I'm going to do?
Takes a lot of guts.
It does, man. And, you got bills to pay, and so I don't care. The money will come. I don't care. You know what he said? I'm a smart guy, man.
That shows me he was a guy who was in touch with the universe. And
Absolutely.
And had good instincts and knew, like, this is what the world's telling me. I got to follow my path.
Yep. And, brave guy, man. Like, I couldn't just give up my job and where I, give up my apartment. I was living on my own at that time, still wrestling. And he was able to do it, man. He just, I don't care. I don't like it. I'm not happy. I'm leaving. And good for you, man. Like, just a class act.
Yeah.
Class act,
I don't want to end this on a sad note, so can you give us a story, a funny or an entertaining Autobahn, or even just one that makes you happy, Autobahn?
Okay. Well, it's kind of rude, but it's in the middle of the ring.
I don't want you to bury him either.
No, but he's funny. It's just like he goes, says this couple, I guess, are out there, and he turns, they're jaw-jacking him, and he turns around, and he looks at him, and he goes, "You shut your mouth before I pull your girl's make some vampire tea." and I remember just like, and there we go.
And that was Autobahn.
And that was it. And, you couldn't bury him no matter how hard you tried, because he wouldn't care.
Right.
That's the best part of it. Some people might be like, yeah, I did say that. Oh, my God, I'm embarrassed about it. Try to hide. Not him. He'd sit there proud as proud could be. Yeah, I said it. What of it?
And an innovator, clearly ahead of his time, Priscilla Kelly, earlier last year, was catching a little bit of controversy. Now she's like a big star for doing that spot at a wrestling show. So Autobahn was really just ahead of his time.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And you know what? He had no fear. He didn't care. Like, you know what? I said he might have been 4'11", but his heart was 7 feet.
And bulletproof.
I mean, he just didn't let, I remember one time he said to me, try living in a body that's 4'11", Stunner. I never thought about it, right? He just peeped to me when and then when he said that, I was like, okay, I get it. And that's why I'm glad he found the girl of his dreams, fell in love, got married, and he was happy, I would stumble across his pictures every once in a while before I got, like, I'm not on Facebook anymore. But they, I was glad, I was happy to see him happy, you know what I mean? So, and it was awesome, man. Like, he was just a good guy, man, solid guy. He would do anything for you. And that's how I remember him. That's how I always remember him, So
we could all be so lucky to be remembered in that way.
Absolutely.
Sean, man, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. God, this was a really wonderful surprise to run into you here.
I was going to be doing the show with my uncle, that's who I'm here with, and my dad, to sell some nerdy stuff, and here we are. Like, small world, man.
Next time I'm going to get you and Jesse Jones in a room, and I'm just going to let the recording go and just have you guys swap stories back and forth.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Anyways.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate it
very much.
Thanks, Adam, and thank you all for listening to this week's show. Let us know what you thought. You can hear us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and we'd love for you to leave us a rating on any of those platforms. 5 stars if you want. 1 star works too. We just want to know what you think of us and what we can do to continue getting your support. So for Adam Contant, I am Matthew Sukram. This has been The Wrasslun Show, and until next time, you know what to do. Listen, share, subscribe, repeat.
This has been a presentation of WrestleMedia, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything. Here's what you're missing out on right now over at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.
We do the program, and then the final match, they hit me with a double spike, and they beat us, and we passed the torch, kind of proverbial torch, right? And what really touched me is that it was like the crowd knew I was leaving.
Want more? Sign up now at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.